just so that I don't forget.
So everything gets recorded.
I'm recording it and then we're uploading it to YouTube to our channel so that other tutors will have access to this training.
So there's a channel.
Yeah, I've just got it all organized, so I'll get that out to everyone.
Good for you.
That actually leads me to a question because I have, when I remember, I try to record my sessions with the student. It comes up in I have to save it to a file. It's kind of complicated, I find, to save it and then bring it up again.
Yeah.
Is it difficult? I mean, have you found it complicated? I did it so that I can print. I like to print the chat because it gives me an idea of the words I should review. I mean, I take notes, but
Yeah, I haven't tried that. We'll have to see if somebody has experience with that and can
okay.
add some value. Well, it's just because I'm learning, but I must say that I'm not that tech savvy, and so sometimes I do something once and then I don't know how I did it the second time.
I know that's always. I find with anything.
I would imagine, given our students, somebody there would know how to do it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a wonderful video about the school.
Is
And
it-
MA is in it.
Yes, several of our students are in it. Okay, Jean, it's 11 o'clock. And 8 o'clock by you. And you got up really early to do this. So let's honor your time and our schedule. Take it away, Jean.
All right. Well, I'm a morning person, so this is not too early for me. And thank you for inviting me. And so I'm going to show you a kind of a demonstration lesson, but talk through it. And this is meant to be not just one lesson, but done over time. And you may not want to do the way I lay it out, but you may want to pick pieces from it. And so let's get started. And so let me find. Is that what I want? Hold on.
We have to mute ourselves.
Yes, so there's no background noise. So please, everybody mute yourself.
Marla, I lost my Paul Bunyan text. Do you have it there? Oh wait, I think I can you guys see that? All right, hold on, I'll get there. Marla, for some reason my Paul Bunyan text isn't showing up. Do you have that on your screen? No? You're on mute.
Jean, do you want the text or the PowerPoint?
The text. I do have the PowerPoint, just the text.
Hold on, I'm working on that. I had it open and now.
I had it open too and then I lost it.
So did I. Hold on. I'm going to try to open it. Okay, so guys, see, this is how it works. We're all learning. Here it is. There you go, Jean.
Mary, thank you. So all of these lessons revolve around choosing a text. And when you're choosing a text, you want to think about where your students, where their reading level is at. And we talk about comprehensibility. You want a text that's slightly above where their English is at. And if there's too many words on a page that they don't know, they can't put the message together. And so you want a text where there's maybe around 5 words on the page that they don't know. You're looking at interests. What are they interested in? And sometimes it's difficult to find something that's exactly at their level. And I'm going to show you how you're going to pull out vocabulary words to teach before you get to the text. So all of these lessons revolve around a text. All right. And let me, Marla, can you get rid of that? And I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint. So we are going to oops. So you would say to your student, we're going to read a story called Paul Bunyan, and it's a folk tale. And you might want to, depending on their English, you might want to ask them, you know, what is a folk tale? Ask them, most cultures have folk tales, and talk about what a folk tale is. And so, and then from there, you want to develop some oral language around the story. So I put a picture in here, and I would ask students to, you know, what do you see in the picture? And get them to talk about the picture, and try to develop some understanding about the story, develop vocabulary. If your students are kind of weak in writing, you could write down what they say and use type it down correctly, and then use that as also a reading lesson. And so let's just practice. And so students, what do you see in the picture? Anyone want to answer that question?
A very big man.
Nice, a very big man. What is he doing?
He's shaking hands with a little man.
Yeah. What else do you see in the picture? So what do you see behind the really big man?
Babe the Blue Ox.
Oh, you read the story. You know, Babe.
Yeah.
All right. And so you would try to get as much vocabulary and talking about the story before you actually get to reading it. So any picture as a way to develop oral language, hopefully related to the story or whatever you're doing. All right. And so some kind of picture to develop oral language. From there, I have pulled out vocabulary words that I want to teach. And they're supposed to, oh, this one is wade. And so I would have them, you say the word, they repeat the word. You talk about, this is the verb weigh without the ed. It's the infinitive to weigh. With the ed, it's past tense. I weighed myself, and have them practice saying the word, and then ask them questions. Did you weigh yourself this morning? You know, get them to practice saying the word and to making sure that they understand what it means. The next word, this word is the word vast, and it's gonna pop in there. The way I set up the vocabulary, I have it floating in, and I would say, everybody say the word vast. Some of the vocabulary words are difficult to find pictures, and so you don't want them to think that vast means desert. And so I think I should have had a couple more pictures that show vast, but vast is really long expanse, vast, and you could ask them about places in Israel that have that show vast skylines or vast views. All right. I think I have one more. And so obviously with Paul Bunyan, we have a lot of logging. Logging, everybody say logging. And so take a look at this man, he is logging the forest. And that means that he is taking down a tree. He is logging. You can talk about log, what a log is, and logging. You can make some of these into a grammar lesson, and just on the spot if you feel like that's where that's what they need. This one is crooked. Everybody say crooked. And so take a look. This road is crooked, right? It's not straight. Sometimes you talk about vocabulary in terms of antonyms of what it's not, the opposite. Straight, crooked. This road is crooked. What are some other things that are crooked? And so, and you could talk also about this has multiple meanings. Crooked also means somebody who's not honest. But in the story, it talks about, I think, a crooked river. And so you use vocabulary to develop, to go from there to look at family of words. You know, this is the adjective. What's the noun? What's the verb? Talk about family of words. All right, and so that could be one lesson. One lesson might be developing oral language around a picture, and then introducing any vocabulary words that you think they won't know in the text. And so from there, I would go to the text. Marla, could you put that text back up there, please?
Jean, there was a question here about where you got the story. Did you scan it? So maybe that's something you can talk about it during the course about how you find these kind of resources.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you've developed oral language around the text. You've introduced vocabulary words that you think they might know, and now it's time to read the text. And so so I found this text online. I find most of my texts online. A lot of times I type in adult ESL folktales, adult ESL text, and it's amazing what's out there. And so I think by now all of you should be familiar with what the level is of your students, and so and you know what their interests are, and so choosing a text that they're interested in reading, that they can access fairly easily. Remember that you want it just to be a little bit above where their level is at. And so when it's time to read the text, there's multiple ways of doing it. A lot of it has to do with where your students are at. And so I know that doing homework is not always easy for your students. And so giving them a chance to read it quietly or before you start working on it. But multiple readings a couple times is not a bad thing. If you're using the text in the hour lesson you have or half an hour, you don't want a really long text. This one I think is 2 pages long. It's I think it's just about right. And so usually when you want students to read, you want to give them a purpose for reading. And so you might want to give them the question, what does Paul Bunyan tell you about the United States? Something like that. Give them a purpose for reading. Something that you can, after you finish reading, that you can go back to and have a focus of the text. And so when you can do, depending on how strong your student is in reading, you can trade off. You read one paragraph, they read another paragraph. Reading out loud is it's a fun activity. We don't do it very often in life, and so or you can have them read out loud. Have them, as they read, have them think about which vocabulary words don't they know. And so if they're reading quietly, have them write down vocabulary words that they come across that they don't know, and then have them go back and see together, work on if they can figure out what the word means from the context. That's a strategy probably most of your students already do in their first language or second language, but going back and see if, read the sentence again, see if there's any clues that help them figure out what the word means. In this case, I have pictures. Most of your students, you won't be using pictures. Somebody just had a comment about using technical articles. And so using pictures, using graphs to figure out what vocabulary words mean. All right. And so you're reading the text. You should have some questions already set up before they read the text. And remember that there's different levels of questions, not just the comprehension level, but giving them questions where they have to make inferences, the higher level thinking questions. You don't want to just stick at the comprehension level. I imagine all of your students are, this is probably what their third, I know my husband's student, this is her third language. And so they're pretty good. I would imagine they're all really good language learners. All right. All right. Can you stop sharing that, Marla? I want to go back to my PowerPoint. And so the use of graphic organizers, and if you Google graphic organizer, you'll get a ton of them. And so a graphic organizer is just a great way of either getting students to process what they read about. And so for this one, I have Paul Bunyan in the middle. I might ask them to write down events from the story, or to write down character traits from the story.
We're not seeing the PowerPoint right now.
Oh, oh, really? Okay. Now? Nope. Okay. Let me go back to share screen. Now can you see it? Okay. And so using a graphic organizer to either process the story, or to if you're going to have them do some kind of writing activity, have them fill out a graphic organizer before they actually get to writing. If you have students for whom writing is really difficult, it's a great way to organize their thoughts before they actually get to writing. And so after reading, you've worked on oral language, you've worked on vocabulary, you've read the text. And so the last piece might be a writing activity. And so if you have an advanced student, they can write their own folktale. Or they can write another folktale with Paul Bunyan as the main character. Most cultures have folktales, and so they could write one that they know from their own culture. If you have an intermediate student, you could have them. You could just stick with a paragraph level, and have them summarize the story. For intermediate students, you might want to provide frames for the students. That's where you give them a structure. Maybe you give them the first sentence of the paragraph, and or you fill out one of those graphic organizers, and just to give them some structure. Writing is just about always the last skill that is mastered, and writing is often difficult for students. And just asking them to write is often overwhelming for students. And so, especially for intermediate students, giving them some kind of structure. Or they can write a paragraph about whether they like the story or don't like the story and give reasons. And so, that was pretty quick, but that's basically it in a nutshell. So ask me questions.
Are you opening it up to questions?
Yes.
Okay, I wrote in the chat, my student is pretty advanced, and he sends me technical articles that I have him read to me. And when he comes across multi-syllable words, he has difficulty in pronouncing them and enunciating them. Mm-hmm. And I've broken them down into syllables and counted with my fingers under my chin. But I struggled as a teacher and he struggled as a student. And I'm just hoping some of you out there might have some suggestions on how to help with pronunciation on difficult words.
And so, so you break it down. That's great. Look at the base form of the word. The main part, taking away the prefixes and suffixes, right? And so, and I think just practicing. I mean, just repetition would be really good. Do you record yourself, and then he can listen to it later on?
No. When we have our discussions, he's told me to interrupt if I hear a mispronunciation. So we deal with it on the spot. Mm-hmm. And then I do record, make note of the words that he struggled with. And at his request, we go through those at the very end of the lesson. My difficulty is I think there are certain sounds and letters in English that are just absolutely foreign to him. And virtualization, I mean, there's a lot there. I mean, but that's part of what his work entails. And visualization, and they were in the same sentence, and he just shook his head.
Yeah.
He understood them. He knows what virtual is, and he knows what visual is, but it's the English words that are so compound, and getting this. And I stressed to him the importance that every letter has a sound to it, and the listener is waiting to hear all of those sounds. We cannot be sloppy or glide over them. So again, I struggled as a teacher, and I'm hoping, maybe not now, but somebody can give me some feedback on how I can better help him in pronunciation of these multisyllabic words.
I'm curious, how old is he?
He's 30 years old. He's working.
Okay. And okay, somebody else has, Marjorie, did you have a comment?
Well, I was just going to say, since the Asian ending is obviously a problem, and the isation ending. So one thing you could do is compile as long a list as you can of other words with the same ending, like realization, memorization, and therefore you wouldn't just be working on visualization and virtualization, but you'd have many more. So it would just be a lot of repetition practice, and that's always good.
Can I
Okay,
add a comment?
sure.
Okay, I just had a lesson
Great.
with my had a lesson with my students last week, all on that same subject that you're talking about, with the syllable. I can't even get it out. The syllables and everything, stress on it, and I found a wonderful, wonderful demonstration on Fluent U, I think it was, on stress. So what they did, and I went over with him, and he picked it up quickly. As you say, tap your chin to see how many, but you have to know which syllable to stress, the first, the second, and the third. And it really, there's a list of rules there. And I did the first two rules with him last week. He picked it up quickly. Like if it's accent, 2 syllables. If it's 2, you accent the first syllable. Go online, you'll find it. It's a wonderful, wonderful, I found it wonderful.
What was it again?
Well, Google stress and pronunciation.
Okay.
And there's just one particular app with this teacher, and she's got everything laid out so well, and the rules, and some of the rules I didn't even realize. Like I said to my student, you know, speaking English from the time I was born, I never knew the rules. I just knew to do it. I says, I am learning the rules now with you. So, and he really picked that up quickly. And when I had him do some reading, he actually stopped to think how many syllables, where the accent should be according to these rules. And he made a list of it. So next week I will review that and go on to the next set of rules without overwhelming him too much at one time. But it's wonderful.
I appreciate that. That's helpful. And can I just throw out one more? I noticed with my student that he drops S's at the end of the word. He doesn't pronounce them. Any suggestions on how I can get him to focus on the importance of each and every letter? Because it's a repeated problem.
Yes, I found the same thing, that he drops the S's. And I just stop him each time when he's reading, or if he's reading something, I said, I think you have to look at the end of that word carefully and do it again.
Could I ask a question about that? When you say he drops the S, both of you, is it in any word or is it in the third person singular in the simple present? Because that means it's not failing to pronounce it. It's that in Hebrew, there isn't a different ending. I mean, that's francophones also have that trouble remembering that.
I don't know the technical, but it would be like the sentence, he come to work.
Yeah. Because French people also have the same problem. I used to teach English to French people, and the simple present is this for them. There's no difference in the third person singular. So it's a grammar problem. It's not a pronunciation problem.
I think
you that in their.
But I find this is when he's reading.
Okay,
so that if it's when he's reading,
I have to stop him when he's reading and say, look at the whole word, look at the ending, look at the beginning, look at the ending, and then.
So these are shared problems that you're experiencing too.
Yes.
And you simply address it at the time. Is that basically what you're suggesting? Because I don't know what else to do.
Right at the time.
You know, also you could do echo reading where you read the sentence first and then have them read. And so if they hear you read it, you know, and you've already pointed that out, and then have them read after you.
I do that. Whenever I give a paragraph, if it's not a long one, I read it first and I have him follow along carefully with me. Then I have him read it and I make note of the mistakes he makes. And then I go over that with him and I have him read it again.
Okay. Echo reading. That's a very good idea. Okay. I'm trying to teach him to read in phrases and couplets so that he's conveying a thought instead of just sounds and words. And he's picking up on that. But the S's were becoming very apparent, and you know, and that interrupts his ability to read when I'm correcting him right in the middle of it. So I was just hoping you have ideas, and I appreciate it.
I want to know if you'd consider conjugating verbs. I go, he goes, he go, I go, you go, he goes. Would you consider doing that? Anybody? I don't know. I'm just.
So something that I like to do are I use dictations. I don't know if any of you in French, when I was learning French, we did dictations.
Yeah.
That after you read a text, you take out 3 or 4 of the sentences from the text, and you tell the student you're going to say it 3 times. They have to write down what you're saying, and then so you would, if they're having a problem with that S in the third person, you would have a sentence like he goes to the store every day, and so they're writing that down, and then you go and you put that sentence up there right away, and then he compares what he wrote to what the
Jean, that's a terrific idea. Great.
yeah. So I do about 5 of those sentences, and it's also great for you. You can look at what they wrote down and see where there's an issue with what you're saying and what's not translating into on the page.
That's a very helpful approach. Thank you.
I also do what Marlon was suggesting. I do the conjugations. And if anyone wants, this is, I don't know if you can see it, but I've been working on the third person singular because mine has a lot of trouble with that. And it's the irregular verbs and adding the S for he, she, and it. And all the, it's very helpful practice. It just develops an awareness of it because they don't hear it in Hebrew ever.
And I think also that's where developing some of that oral language and maybe writing down what they're saying, and so they can see in writing, you know, what it is they're saying and making that connection.
I find that my student is very thoughtful in his ability to write. It's really his fluency and his extemporaneous speaking that he struggles with. And that manifests whether he's reading an article or he's talking to me in business terms. He has much more ease when it's a social or a personal conversation.
I taught students who were either Black or Hispanic for many years. And one of the things I did was I wrote down exactly what I heard when they said something. And then I said, what's missing? I showed them the sentence, and then sometimes they could see what was missing, and then reminded them that that the hearer has to hear the S, or he won't know what you're talking about.
That's a really good idea too. This is very helpful. Marla, very good. Thank you.
I have a different question. Are we ready? Yeah. Well, my student, it's amazing to me, even maybe an hour and a half a week, she is actually speaking more fluently. And some of the mistakes she used to make have gotten corrected, although many of them have not. And she really doesn't do the homework. And she is very busy. She works really hard, and she goes home for Shabbat, and she feels very pressured by her work. And yesterday she said, well, maybe now instead of meeting an hour each time, we should meet a half hour. So I would like some discussion of what's the best use of the half hour. We've been reading The Necklace, which is a little bit too hard for her, but it's a story that appeals to her. You know, the Maupassant story about,
Oh, wow.
yeah, everybody knows,
Wow.
it, right? So there are words she doesn't know, but we read it together. And and I don't give her most of the words. You know, I sort of give her the Hebrew. I know enough Hebrew to tell her if there's something she doesn't know that I think it's a word she won't meet again, and I don't dwell on it. And so we've read it a little bit at a time. In fact, yesterday the necklace got lost. So, you know, it's tune in tomorrow, it's suspense. But she's not going to do the homework. She's not going to, so it takes half an hour to read a section of the story together, and I read some, she reads some, we trade, we discuss it a little bit. Do you guys think it would be smarter to, and then I put on WhatsApp as if it were correspondence, a very few of the words for her to look at when she picks up, next time she picks up WhatsApp. Do you think it's smarter to spend time on grammar? I mean, she's still, nowadays when she says, I remind her that there's something missing, and now she knows there's something missing, but she doesn't remember it by herself necessarily.
And I would like to respond to this.
Yeah.
Because I have a student who has a terribly pressured life and doesn't do homework. Only once I asked him to do a little bit of homework, and he seemed to disappear for a little bit. Anyway, he didn't do it. He said he's embarrassed because he can't write well. He does not have a lot of formal education, but he's terribly bright, and he's terribly thoughtful. For example, he asked me right at the beginning as we were chatting, which he does a lot, what's the difference between an idea and an opinion?
Oh.
It's a pretty sophisticated thing. I mean, I went around asking people that for a few days, but he doesn't know what grammar is. If I say to him, let us talk about a verb, he doesn't know what it is. He's had little formal education, and yet he's happy. He seems to be happy speaking. That's all he wants to do. He speaks very volubly. I speak very volubly, and he says it's helping him to be more confident. But I'm very frustrated because I'm a grammar-phile. I love grammar. I can't bear speech without grammar, but I have to. I just say I think it's admirable that this young man who has such a busy life and has a family and is so overwhelmed that he finds time to study at all. So I say, very good. It's wonderful that you're doing this. I don't see what else to do.
And
Well, that's an answer. That's a good answer.
Well, I don't know if it's a good answer, but I'm available when he wants. Some weeks he comes for 2 hours, some weeks 1 hour. One week he didn't come at all because he was too busy, but I'm available.
Marilyn,
Yes,
maybe ask if he keeps a log or a journal.
he's a big writer. In Hebrew, he writes. He's
So have him
writing a lot.
have him write in English, and then use that as the basis of your discussions.
I tried that. He won't do. He says my English is I can't do it because I'll make a lot of mistakes. I don't want to. At least now I write him an email and he replies in an email. So this is progress. This is the first bit of writing he's actually done, and that's taken I don't know how many weeks or months to get there. He doesn't. He says I don't want to write because I'll make mistakes. So, I mean, this is
MK doesn't.
and that's where you need to give him. He's overwhelmed. Having the task of writing, and so giving him sentences where he has to put in one word.
I did that, and he didn't do it.
Oh.
I actually did that. I did exactly that. I am happy.
Yeah.
Do it with him online. Excuse me. Don't give it to him as homework. Do it together with him online.
Yeah, I will.
So that's
He
your
says he's
question.
more confident. He says he can speak better now. So who am I to complain?
Yeah.
We recently had this easy reading newspaper. Maybe that's a basis of something that you can both use that is of comfort, knowing that it's not judgmental about what he's writing, but provides a basis or a springboard to have something that he can handle and that you can help him with and not judge him by.
That
Could
would
I
be a
ask
good
that?
idea. I think that's a good idea. My problem is I don't know how to put a text on the screen. I only know how to put what I write, and that's not good enough. I need to put it. Is that hard to put a text on the screen?
If nothing else, are you using WhatsApp or are you using Zoom?
Zoom.
So
Well, maybe in advance, if you could just make a copy and send whatever it is that you want to read so that he has it and he can print it out.
Good idea. Very good idea. I can do that.
next week we're doing a session on using Google Docs. Marlon, I will make sure you have the link. It might be worthwhile. Some tutors have used the Zoom just for the video and audio, and then they're working simultaneously on their computer on the Google Doc in real time with their students. So that may be a tool that where you don't have to worry about screen sharing and you can collaborate.
I would love to put a document like that story on the screen and we could read it together. That would be great.
So I'll send you the link. Anybody else who wants that session,
I want it.
know. Good.
I want it.
Okay.
But so
Got it.
Who's just
MAA, my student she puts up, I sent it to her by email, and she puts up the story, usually for the both of us. All right, so in other words, there's no magic way to carve in, half an hour is better than nothing. She does speak better than she did. I don't know, she's bright. She's bright and she's cute. She's an adorable girl.
Jean, any other thoughts based on what you're hearing and kind of marrying the text, the use of text to some of the issues that you're hearing emerge from these particular tutors?
Well, from my training, we try to stress making sure you do all 4 skills for every lesson, that you work on listening, speaking, reading, and writing all 4 lessons. And I tend not to focus too much on the mistake, but manipulating a text, talking about the text, using dictations, getting them to write short paragraphs, getting them to use the language, and then if they've written, a student will improve their writing by having them go back and taking a look at where they might see mistakes that they correct with your guidance. That's the most powerful way of moving a student ahead. And I guess for students, what is their goal? Do they want to improve their writing? Are they wanting to, what is their goal in working with you guys? And so even if you're working with all 4 skills, you might want to be focusing, everything is building up to doing, to writing, whatever you're going to be writing. And so that's what I would suggest. And so getting them to use, and how much are you talking? How much are they talking? They should be talking probably more than you. And so just keeping all of those things in mind, getting them to use the language. And as long as they're communicating, communication is the key. That's what we're after. It's not absolutely correct English, but can they communicate clearly in speaking and writing? Good luck, you guys. It sounds like you have some wonderful students, and you're all very lucky because they all have literacy in at least their first language. I work with students, adults who don't necessarily have literacy in their first language, and as an adult, it's so much more difficult to develop.
What do you mean by literacy in their first language?
They can read and write in their first language.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you're basically just putting the English in that framework that they already know about reading and writing. So expand their vocabulary. That's probably the best thing you can do is get them to learn new vocabulary words. That's all.
Thank you, everyone, for participating. And we'll get the recording uploaded. And Jean, thank you for your time and your expertise and your ideas. We so appreciate it.
My pleasure. I really enjoyed working with you guys. Good
Thank
luck.
Marla, thank you for putting this together. It's very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marla. Thank you, Jean.
Marla,
Thank
Be
you.
well to
Thank you
everyone.
all.
thank you. And can you remind me of your website, please? Your website?
I will. I will send you the information.
Website and Facebook pages.
Yeah, we'll
Okay,
do that.
thanks.
Thank you all. Be well. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.